Shalom Aleichem and welcome. We are learning the Sicha of Pirkei Avos, which is based on a Farbrengen that the Rebbe had on Shabbos Achrei, Tafshin Lamed Gimel, 1973. Now, at the beginning, towards the middle of the Farbrengen, the Rebbe said a Maimer, which eventually was then edited and put into Sefer Maimer. It's one of the most famous Maimerim of the Rebbe Melukit, and that is the Maimer of Kol Yisroel Yesh Lahem Chelek Le'olam Haba. We could start with just getting a quick peek at the Maimer. See, it's Shabbos Achrei Mevarchim this in Tafshin Lamed Gimel, and the idea that Olam Atchiyah is higher than the Gili of Gan Eden. Okay. Now, later on in the Farbrengen, the Rebbe went and spoke about many topics. One of the interesting topics that is not related to what we learned, but I think is fascinating. Rebbe was talking about tzaddik v'daloi, why bad people suffer, etc. And it's the kind of stuff you hear at sermons, but you don't imagine that it was in the Farbrengen. And it was in the context of Hashlama. Rebbe was continuing a conversation he had about Shnei Bnei Aaron who passed away. And the Kana Makim, and over here it's time in the continuation of what we learned about the Karvason of Hashem to bring another point. We know the famous question regarding all the destruction that the Yidden had, and especially in the Second World War. That's Lo Yasa Mishpat. There's no justice, and people feel like it's not fair. Even though by some of the Yidden it caused a chizuk in the Munah Torah, even Mesiras Nefesh B'Poila Kiddush Hashem, the answer is you can't bring proof from a few individuals. Because this individual wants an answer. He doesn't want to just rely on the Munah. In other words, the other individual who's not going the Munah route wants an answer. And we explained that every Baal Seichel understands that the main part of life of a human being is not the guf, but the neshama. And so too everybody understands that something that causes a separation in the guf, in other words, causes the death of a guf, cannot cause a difference in the neshama. So the neshama is always there forever. And from here is understood, whoever says that because the Holocaust happened, it's a proof that there's no justice and no judge, it's like somebody saying that for the mere fact that I see an individual is either happy or sad, that tells me everything about the rest of the life. Because I found you in one moment of sadness, that means you're a sad person. A moment of happiness, it's a happy person. And so too over here, because the years upon which a neshama is in the guf is small, even in quantity, compared to the thousands of years the neshama will be alive after that, and before that, if I could add, then you cannot say that because in one moment of difficulty, that's a proof that the rest of the soul's journey is difficulty. It's only for a moment, and after that, the neshama will have chayim menucha v'shalva. But then you could ask the question, Punk Farket, the other way. We see that Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem to explain why Tzaddik V'dalik, not the way Tanya explained, Tzaddik V'dalik, the literal pshat. Tzaddik that has he has a difficult time. And Yirmiyah asked the question, Madua derech l'shaim salecha, why the shaim being successful? And so much so, there's a full sefer from the Tanakh, Sefer Iyov, that talks about this. By the way, recommended reading, if I could say. And according to what we said, and there's no question, right? What do you mean? It's great, and the neshama will be forever. And on this we explained that one of the foundations of the emunah is that the neshama came down to this world and came into this elam hazeh to do Torah mitzvahs, and that's the way you accomplish incredible things that cannot be accomplished without it. So even though you'll say that the neshama is in a guf for a small amount of time relative to the lesser life, the rest of the neshama's life, but the fact is, the neshama could have done something in this world, and that's why we need a peaceful life in this world, so that we could do the mitzvah, Torah mitzvahs. So that's why, because we know that we're supposed to be here in this world, we come to a time and we say, how? We say, Hashem, if the Yidden that that died would have stayed alive, they would be able to do Torah mitzvahs, they would be able to accomplish so much for our world. So even though the neshama over there is perfect, it's not enough. But the Rebbe says this question is only mitzad emunah and Torah mitzvahs. In other words, you have to see the value. But if it's mitzad seichel itself, then you could just say whatever. The neshama has a small amount of time on this world, and the neshama's life is much longer up there. And the Rebbe says, but now we have to bring up another point. Everything we said is not connected to the Nazis that killed the 6 million. Yes, the Holocaust was exerted from Hashem, but ultimately they did it mitzat chunas nafshem hada. They did it from their evil nature. Literally, like they're a bunch of animals in the wild that want to kill and eat. They literally have a pleasure in murder. Like the Rambam says about the Mitzrim, that even though technically the Yidden were supposed to go Mitzrayim, nevertheless Hashem held them accountable, the Mitzrim. So too, Negel and Mitzrim Shabbatarena, the Mitzrim of our generation that killed 6 million Kedeshim, it's because of their evil nature. Because in their actual nature, they're like Vilde Chayas, that the whole pleasure is to hunt and kill. And literally they had pleasure from killing Yidden. And therefore, a chayada that can act like this without any limits, yemach shema v'zichra. Then the Rebbe talks about not connecting it, like if Rebbe connects it to Mir Yehudi, where they're chasing Goyim to become Yidden. And the Rebbe says there was a story in the newspaper that a Nazi came and he wanted to settle in Israel, and they chased after him. They gave him everything he needs as long as he settles in Eretz Yisrael, even though you know that he hates a Yid. And he says it publicly, he hates it. Nevertheless, you give him all the privileges. Now, the Rebbe says when you want to make a memorial for the 6 million ha-Kedeshim, so the true memorial is by filling the lack that came through their murder. Because had they been alive, they would have continued doing Torah mitzvahs. So now we have to fulfill this, that as many Yidden as possible will learn Torah and do mitzvahs like they would do. And because there's not enough people at the front, in other words, doing this and doing as many Torah mitzvahs, therefore we have to do and fight to make sure it gets accomplished as much as possible. And everybody should therefore take upon himself to learn with 2-3 more Yidden, etc. Then the Rebbe continued. Then the Rebbe spoke about Pirkei Avos. And the Rebbe says we're going to sit on the Mishnah Kol Yisroel Sicha, that the pasuk Amar Kulam Tzadikim is being brought as a proof that Kol Yisroel Sicha because everyone's Tzadikim and therefore Kol Yisroel. But says the Rebbe, based on this, we should have just asked the beginning of the pasuk. Amar Kulam Tzadikim Elam Yeshuaretz. Why do you have to say Netzim Atoi Mas Yudel Esbar? The Rebbe says there are some girsas in Pirkei Avos that don't put it. But why do we put Mas Yudel Esbar? What's the connection? Obviously, some of the points that the Rebbe answers are brought in the Sicha that we learned, but here we're going to bring out the points that not necessarily came out in the edited Sicha. The Rebbe says like this: Negeh to the Pirush Elam Haba Yershu Aretz. You could have thought the Eretz means Beduchnius, like it says, I'll walk in front of Hashem in the land of life, and that refers to Gan Eden. And when you talk about Svidus, it refers to Malchus and Bina. But nevertheless, the Pshat over here, Elam Haba, is literally Elam HaTchiyah, the Tchiyas HaMesim, the Shamas Begufim. And now you understand why it says Netzim Atay Mas Yad Lisbar, because over here you see the proof that Yershu Aretz is not Gan Eden, which is a ruchnistic world, but Elam HaTchiyah, a gashmistic world. Netzim Atay is like planting, and planting causes fruit and many more, and many generations of fruit. And tzmicha, growth, can only happen in Elam HaGashmi, not in Gan Eden. In Gan Eden, there's no growth. Everything stays where it is. Kol davar nimtza b'mkemeh. There's no aliyas. And even if there's aliyas, it's all systemized. It's a systemized aliyah. Okay, on your yard site, you'll get upgraded to here. And therefore, because it's systemized and it cannot be spontaneous, it is considered standing. And dafka over here in this world, you become mahalach, and therefore you could really grow. And that's what we also finished in the Mishnah. Hirbalam Torah mitzvahs, incredible amount. Hirbal, rav, smicha, it's all the same point. And dafka in this physical world, you could go beyond limits. There's no system of how quickly or slowly you could grow. You could grow as much as you want. And so to Masa Yadai Asiyah is in Gashmis itself. And that's the connection between Kol Yisroel to Pirkei Avos. The idea of Pirkei Avos is Musar, it's guidance how to live. Not only mitzad the neshama, but mitzad the guf, that the guf has to be the way it is. And through the anhaga through the behavior of following Pirkei Avos, then you achieve the gili that will be lasid lavai, the mila of the guf. When you make sure that your morals are not only in your neshama but in your guf, you achieve your Ma'aseh Mashiach, Chiyas HaMeisim, which is neshama b'guf, and that's why it's connected to Pirkei Avos is connected to Shavuos, because Zman Matan Torah Seinu Lo B'Shamayim Hi, Torah is not in heaven, it's dafka neshamas b'gufim. L'chaim u'l'shalom.